This is Just Common Sense, embracing common sense conservative principles with Dr. Johnny Hunter.
Well, greetings and salutations, and welcome once again to today's program of Just Common Sense, taken from Proverbs 2:7. He grants a treasure of common sense to the honest. He is a shield to those who walk with integrity. That's a strong verse and a powerful message here today. And I want to thank you for listening, and I always send out a special thank you for your prayers for us and for this nation. And please pray for not only your family, but pray for your enemies. If you remember sometime quite a while ago, one of our guests really reminded us of that. And you don't have to pray something bad for your enemies. Pray something good for your enemies. Because I tell you, if your enemy gets saved, that's one of the best things that could ever happen to them. Anyway, I want to thank the flagship station WCLN Christian 105.7, which broadcasts throughout Lumberton, Fayetteville, North Carolina, surrounding areas. And keep in mind, with the internet, the podcast from this station, which it serves local community, can also be heard around the world. And so I say, to God be the glory. We will continue to bring up key news headlines. Today, I'm going to bring it up, but I'm going to bring up the headlines, but I do want you to have an idea of what we're going to be addressing today. Why obedience is better than sacrifice. Why is it better to obey than sacrifice? Now, the first time we hear of this, it comes from Samuel. And I am actually going to pick it up from where we left off. For those who get to hear the very end of the program here, we are going to go back to where we were last week with that centurion. But in 1 Samuel 15, chapter 15, verse 21, it starts also, but the people took of the plunder, sheep and oxen, the best of things which should have been utterly destroyed, to sacrifice to the Lord your God in Gilgal. So Samuel said, has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams. And it gets tougher, and we're going to go into it because the one thing the church is going to have to be in position to, and a lot of leaders, and when I say the church, I'm talking about the people in the churches, from the pastors to the deacons, right to the trustees, to the ushers, to the praise team, to those in children ministry, women's ministry, you name the ministry you are in. This is going to be very key because for where we are headed with this nation, and remember, we just have a moment, but things are going to toughen up. And when they toughen up, we've got to be ready. And I remember the pastor from Cliffdale Community Church the other Sunday brought up a very strong point. That was one of our favorite pastors of all time. He's my pastor, Dale Pascal. And he was bringing up the point of one thing. When you saw that COVID hit and the churches shut down like they did, it said we were being soft. Now, he wasn't saying that churches need to stay open. He's just saying that it should have been their choice of whether or not they open or close. Not that the government comes in and tell you stop, and then you just stop serving. You have to learn how to obey God rather than anything else. So before I get into talking about how Saul spared the king of Agag and all the things and how God ended up rejecting him, I do want to get into the headlines as we lead into this today, because we're going to be talking about that centurion once again. And some of the headlines we have there. The Supreme Court has granted Trump the request to lift stay halting the Venezuela deportations. I know that sounds like a crazy way to read the headlines, but that's how the headlines read. What it is, there was a judge that actually came out and decided that Trump cannot deport Venezuela. Those bad guys that we were having across the border and the gang members, And this was a D.C. judge that pulled us off. And however, the headline that I am pulling from comes right out and tells you this was published on April 7th. The Supreme Court on Monday granted President Donald Trump's request to vacate the lowest court ruling barring the administration from using a 1798 wartime immigration law to immediately deport Venezuelan nationals, including alleged members of the Trans-Arago Team gang, I hope I said it wrong, from the U.S. marketing a significant victory for the administration that advances key priorities. Now, the justice on the High Court ruled 5-4. Oh, that's concerning. Boy, that's another whole show all to itself. To grant the administration request to lift the stay. In other words, this judge has said that Trump had no right as president of the United States to have these people deported, and no, he could not use that act. The Supreme Court ruling, I actually got the entire little docket right here, but I have to save this one when we have our lawyers come on the program and talk about it a little bit. And the Supreme Court ruling actually came out, and you can actually download the Supreme Court decision. And you can see where they dissented, where they agreed with it, where they came with it. But the main thing the court said was that that judge had no jurisdiction over the president. And if they were going to file, they should have done it in Texas, not in the D.C. courts. And those of us who have that common sense, we know exactly why they pulled up the D.C. courts, because they knew that's where they could win at. The decision itself turns out, how many pages I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, a 17-page decision. And in that decision, they tell you why. And they not only say why, but they also recommend what can be done. The court did say that some people do have rights. They should be to appear when they start talking about habeas corpus and all those kinds of things. That's where you need your lawyer at, because what it's saying is if something is going to happen to you, you are supposed to have your day in court. With the way Trump did it, they had their day in court, all right. They just literally knew who they were, knew how they had got here, picked them up, and they were gang members, and they sent them along the way. If they wanted to do it the right way, the lawyers really should have picked a Texas court and asked the Texas court to intervene, and I'll do it. I'm not sure the Texas court judges would have done it at all. Knowing this is going against, you don't have a local judge telling the president of the United States what he can and can't do. There are some things that is so, but I'm being honest with you. That judge was told by the United States Supreme Court he did not have jurisdiction. I do not think that judge was stupid, and I do not think he was incompetent when he did it. I think he knew he didn't have jurisdiction, but he was so political biased that he decided to do it anyhow, which brings to question, when you have a judge like that, he needs to be investigated. Because anyway, for his bias to be that bad, means he can be easily compromised. Not only can he be compromised, but also mean he could be bought. There could have been some money under the table somewhere for a judge to make a decision like that where he's going to tell the president what to do, especially when it's not even in his jurisdiction. Of course, last week we also talked about that Dallas, that Tesla owner is suing the person that scratched his car. Want to say when we talked about it the last time, we talked about the foolishness of people to do certain things. You know, there's just some things you should not be doing. And that was one of them. We talked about astroturfing, and that's where they try to pretend like it's more people's grassroots good, and it's not. And some people got into they haven't had major demonstrations across the country, but they also been scratching up other people's cars. It's foolishness because those cars do have cameras on them and they can tell who did it. Why in the world are you so foolish that you're going to follow a crowd to do something that's so wrong and then get caught doing it. The guy that got caught said he was just trying to use crayon, but it turned out it was not crayon that he was using. And meanwhile, also at issue, they were saying about Trump has fired an admiral at NATO. And they're saying that person was talking about a conservative group. Now, the Trump administration, and this happened on April, published on April the 8th, the Trump administration has sacked a NATO official who was recommended by a conservative research group to be fired as part of a broader effort to purge wokeness from the Pentagon. Navy Vice Admiral Shoshana Chatfield, the only woman in NATO's military committee, was dismissed from the alliance over the weekend without explanation, according to multiple reports. She is one of only a handful of female Navy 3-star officers and was the first woman to leave the Naval War College, a job she held until 2023. And of course, the article is saying it's unclear if a firing was related. It's unclear. But if you really read the things that was going on, it's not very unclear why she was fired. Trump and Hesketh have been vocal in their insistences that so-called woke policies are dead, and vigorously sought to remove leaders who promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to erase DEJ programs and online content. Now that DEI program, diversity, equity, inclusion, they've done it so much now we actually know what it stands for, is racism in another form. In other words, you are going to use skin color to decide who's going to be where and all that kind of things. And if anybody followed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and actually believed in what he was saying, there should come a day when people are not judged by their skin tone. This program, it was bad. And of course now, this person that was fired, Chatfield, one of the things she had done had bemoaned that lawmakers in the House of Representatives at the time were 80% males, proclaimed that our diversity, she's over the Navy now, she was in our diversity is our strength. She also quoted a side of presentation from the Defense Equality Opportunity Management, highlighting that investing in gender equality and women's empowerment can unlock potential, human potential on transformation scale for the military. So she wanted to transform the military and really go do for gender equality. And folks, anybody that's really been in the real military can tell you, diversity is the last thing those guys are looking for. They're looking for people that can conform, people that are unified, people that work together, solid. And some of the comments showed up from other people who were in the military before. They said, as a public servant, including a military leader, she shouldn't have spoken politically or vacated her mandate to be fully neutral and objective about cultural issues. Her firing should not be a surprise to her or anybody else. Play in the arena and you're sure to lose eventually. In other words, you go woke, you will go broke. And somebody else said she believed the polls that told her, because she did this when Biden was administration, just when she was making all those comments and got put up, moved up and all those things. She believed the polls that told her that Harris would win. So there wouldn't be any surprise firing. She was going to be safe for another 4 years at least. But here you have someone who was fired, who was totally opposite of what the military is working towards now. And the military is going to go for merit. And that means they got to undo a lot of that racism that's behind the scenes there, no matter how it comes up. Now, in Luke 7, let me start off with where we were sometime before. There was a guy. Oh, let me see, can I get my notes right? See, that's why I miss my pet, because, it's in Luke 7 that Jesus healed a centurion servant. And what happens with that Luke 7 and what happens in 1 Samuel 15 are very closely related. There's all kinds of scriptures where you go, where God is very consistent And this is just one of the places. There's a number of verses we could leave, but my program is not that long for me to get to all of the parallel places we could actually get into that shows you those two scriptures are so closely related. Jesus healed centurion's servant. Now, when he concluded all his sayings at the hearing of the people, he entered Capernaum. And it said a certain centurion's servant who was dear to him was sick and ready to die. So when he heard about Jesus, he sent elders of the Jews to him, pleading with him to come and heal his servant. And when they came to Jesus, they begged him earnestly, saying that one for whom he should do this was deserving, for he loves our nation and has built us a synagogue. So this guy's saying this guy not only loves the nation, but he loves the church. He's doing, and when Jesus, and plus the guy's a Roman now, so they know they were dealing with a Roman. Then Jesus went with them. He sent some other people there. And when he was already not far from the house, and he was getting close to God's house, the centurion sent friends to send somebody else out to him, saying, Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy that you should enter my roof. Therefore, if I did not even think myself worthy to come to you, but say the word, and my servant will be healed. This centurion never shows up. He sends other people, and the reason he sends other people, because he thinks Jesus is so wonderful and so great, he's not worthy to be anywhere near him. He's not worthy at all to be anywhere near him. That's how much he honored Jesus. Now, before we finish up with that, let's get back to Saul. There's a part of God that is very tough, and there's always scriptures that I don't like. And this is one of them, but nevertheless is there. And God is right, and whether John Hunter likes it or not, this verse is in there. The thing about the Bible is it will give you verses just boom. Samuel also said to Saul, and this was in 15. Let me see. Let me go back in my notes, because I might need to read more of this than I actually have down here today. There came a time that God had decided to reject him. Samuel said to Saul, this is 1 King, the very first chapter. I'm going to start at the top and see how far we can go before time runs out on us real quickly here. Samuel said to Saul, the Lord sent me to anoint you over his people, over Israel. Now therefore heed the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of Israel. Now therefore, he said, thus saith the Lord of hosts, I will punish Amalek for what he did Israel, how he ambushed them on the way when he came out of Egypt. Now, folks, God is getting ready to punish somebody. And that may be a hard thing to understand, but God was a God that really execute justice. And he knew how they had ambushed people, what they had did wrong. And now he's telling Saul, now go and attack Amalek, utterly destroy all that they have, and do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, infant and nursing child, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. Oh, that's a verse I do not like at all. Because in this particular thing, God is saying, you wipe all these people out. They went after my people. Now we're going to take them all out. And a lot of times people are saying, well, don't worry, Brother Johnny. God's going to end abortion. God's going to... and I keep reminding people there's some things you don't want God to take care of. And you don't want God to use other people to take care of them. Because when God takes care of something, it's hard. It can be very harsh. That's why you got to really, you got to lean towards that mercy side of him. Because this justice side of him is tough. So Saul gathered the people together, numbered them, 200,000 foot soldiers, 10,000, and Saul came to the city of Amalek and lay in wait in the valley. Now, what he did do to the Kenites, he told the Kenites, they weren't there with him. He said, now, unless I destroy you too, for you did show kindness to your Israel when they came out of Egypt. He was letting them know, if y'all don't get out of there, we're going to destroy you too. And so the Kenites, they got out. They departed. They left Amalekites by themselves. And Saul attacked the Amalekites. And they said, but he also took Agag the king alive. Allah destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep, the oxen, the faxen, the lamb, the fatlings, the lambs, and all that was good, and were unwilling to destroy them, but everything despised and worthless they utterly destroyed. And this is when the trouble kicked in. When the word of the Lord came to Samuel, because God saw what he did, he said, I greatly regret that I have set him Saul up as king, for he has turned back from following me and has not performed my commandments, and it grieved Samuel. Now, I'm saying this because I see there's a church out there, and they made news. I won't even put their church name out there. No, they give them extra publicity. They want to be friendly to transgender people, where they say people don't have to pretend when they come to our church. They're going to support transgenders. So if a guy wants to be a girl, he can. If a girl wants to be a guy, he can. Man wants to pretend to be a woman, he can do that at this church. The church is all for it because they want people to feel welcome. And they gave a situation where this guy came to the church and, yes, he was a girl. And they also helping a woman who had a little child. Child was 5 years old, and the little boy wanted to be a girl, so the mama's helping him become a girl, and the church is going to stand beside him. Folks, this is the kind of stuff God is saying you don't put up with. When God says you totally don't do it, you don't do it. You got to leave that alone. You got to let the truth. In other words, if a man is pretending to be a woman, yes, you are a church that allow people to pretend. And you can try to put around the thing all you want to, but that's the worst thing that people can do. That's why it's good that we're in the New Testament, not the Old. Because the way they dealt with things in the Old Testament would have been much more vicious. Here, all the church got to do is not put up with it. Anyway, it pleased the Lord. And it grieved Samuel. When the Lord said, I greatly said I have said me, he turned back, has not performed my commandment. It grieves Samuel's heart and went out to the king. When you're talking about somebody praying for the king, he prayed for him because he was a man that he actually put in office. And he knew that people was rejecting the Lord when he did it because the Lord told him so. But Samuel went to Saul, and Saul said to him, Oh, blessed are you of the Lord. I have performed the commandment of the Lord. But Samuel said, then what is all this bleeping of the sheep in my ears and the torn of oxen that I hear? He said, wait a minute, whoa. He's thinking, wait a minute, are you supposed to destroy everything? Well, what is all this beep and bang and all this stuff going on behind the scenes here? And Saul said, well, they brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and oxen to sacrifice to the Lord your God. And the rest we have utterly destroyed. And then Samuel said to Saul, be quiet. And I will tell you what the Lord said to me last night. That was almost like telling somebody, wait a minute, you just shut up. And he said, okay, speak on. And Samuel said, when you were little in your eyes, were you not the head of the tribes of Israel? And did not the Lord anoint you king over Israel? Now the Lord sent you on a mission and said, go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they are consumed. Then why did you not obey the voice of the Lord? Why did you swoop down on the spoil and do evil in the sight of the Lord? And Saul said to Samuel, but I have obeyed the voice of the Lord and gone to the mission to which the Lord sent me and brought back Agag, king of Amalek. I have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. And the people took the plunder, sheep and oxen, the best of things which should be destroyed, to sacrifice to the Lord your God in Gilgal. He repeated again. So Samuel said, has the Lord great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams. In other words, he was saying, you really want to please God, it's not in giving. And I would tell anybody tonight, be sure to, I had a pastor who say, yep, when you come to church, be sure to bless the Lord, bless the church, God's tithes and your offerings. All kinds of things you can do, but in this case, they were talking about sacrificing animals and things, and That wasn't what the Lord was more important. He said to obey is better than sacrifice. And then not only notice what he calls it when you don't obey. He said, for rebellion is a sin of witchcraft. And I would say that every pastor out there that's out there talking about marrying two men and marrying two women, every pastor out there that's going to let the little boys in their congregation act like they're little girls, every one of you that doing something that deceitful, that bad, and that much against the commandments of the Lord, because the one last group you want to confuse is children. Oh my, oh my. When Jesus talked about, he talking about those who offend the little ones that believe in him, better a millstone was hanging around the neck, dropped into the sea unto death. I mean, Jesus was tough on that one, because rebellion is a sin of witchcraft. When you do not obey the commandments of the Lord God, you're in rebellion. It's time for the church to be the church. He said, and stubbornness is an iniquity and idolatry. So for those churches out there that say, they even got a church out there that says, we support abortion, a woman's right to an abortion. They put it on the sign of their church. I don't know, whatever church that is, it's good they put on the sign because it lets you know where not to go. Because you rejected the word of the Lord, he said, he has also rejected you from being king. Now, back to that centurion. That centurion went there. Wouldn't even go see Jesus. Said he wasn't even worthy. He said, for I am a man placed under authority, having soldiers under me, and I say, go, and he goes. To another, come, and he comes. And to my servant, this, and he does it. When Jesus heard these things, he marveled at him, and turned around and said to the crowd that followed him, I say unto you that I have not found such great faith, not even in Israel. And those who were sent returned to the house, found the servant well, who had been sick. In other words, Jesus said, wow, now that's faith. That's faith. That's faith. And notice what this guy said, the reason he didn't. He said, I am a man placed under authority. In other words, he said, I am under authority, so I obey the person who's over me. But notice we also said, I also want people that are under me to obey me. I am a man placed under authority, having soldiers under me, and I say to one, go, and he goes, to another, come, and he comes, do this, and he does it. And that's why that servant understood the importance of obedience. I remember on a news program one time, the news people was telling this captain, he said, no, when you're a military person, you are going to obey the commands. He said, well, the news person said, well, what if they tell you to take a hill and you can tell you're outnumbered and your men are outnumbered? He said, I will go take that hill. They said, no, what if there was no way, totally impossible for you to take that hill, but you would command? He said, I will follow that command. I will go take that hill. And they was, yeah, but why in the world would you do that? Why would you obey your commanders on such a decision? He said, because my commanders know more than me. He said, they know what's on the other side of that hill. And who knows if they are banking on me to do something on this side of the hill so they can do what they need to do on the other side of the hill. And he said, that's why I will obey. And folks, if we could understand that, there are things that God understands. There are things that God wants us to do. And it's better for us to obey. It's better than making a sacrifice. Because God knows what's on the other side of those commands and those hills. Every commandment he has helped us. The Lord saw that the captain was one who understood what it meant to obey. To obey the Lord's command is a visible testimony to having faith. That's why to obey is better than sacrifice of material things. Open your Bible, attend Sunday service. And remember, the best way to please God is to obey him. That's just common sense, because Jesus Christ saves.
Just Common Sense, a common sense approach to life with Dr. Johnny Hunter. Get involved and embrace common sense conservative principles when you visit learninc.org. LEARNINC, learninc.org. To listen, like, and share, look for Just Common Sense anywhere you listen to podcasts.